Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts.
So the last time we spoke, Alison, the family of John George were still looking for his remains and really trying to kick up information about what might have happened to him. So things have changed drastically since then. Body was found and a man has been arrested, brought before the courts. He has claimed he's nothing to do with it, and the family are back in Belfast.
They are, yeah. So things moved at quite a pace, really, in a quick period of time. The family were becoming pretty despondent, I suppose, because they had been given lots of false leads, lots of false hope. Some of that was well-intentioned, people saying that they may have seen something or that it could be in this location, and others deliberate misinformation to send them on wild goose chases. And they had Canine Search and Rescue, who had the rescue service from Northern Ireland, and they went over, they brought 2 dogs over and they searched a lot of different locations and they didn't find anything. And so they came back empty-handed. There was a lot of feeling that, that maybe we're going to just completely run out of any kind of leads in the family. I know that Billy George, John George's father, had promised his grandchildren he would bring their father home, and he was carrying the responsibility of that really heavily on his shoulders. And nothing was really happening. In the meantime, there was always the suspicion the Spanish police knew a lot more than what they were saying. Things operate very differently there. If something like that happened to you in Ireland, you'd have a liaison officer who would update you and say, look, there's an arrest going to be made, or there's this, or could you just hold tight for this, or we're checking out this kind of information. That doesn't happen in Spain. The family are just completely in the dark as to what was going on. But because when I was in Spain, what I did know is, and I think I spoke to you about this the last time, they did take a lot of CCTV and things away from the street where the apartment is, where John George was last seen. And I had spoken to one of the neighbours who owned, one of those big camper vans.
Yeah.
And those things are worth a lot of money and are always being stolen. So this thing was covered in cameras. It had cameras in the front and the back of it. And he had been approached by the Garda Civil and asked for the CCTV off that, and he had told me he'd had a look through it before he had handed it over, and there was a lot of comings and goings in around the 14th, 15th of December in and around that apartment, including a lot of cars. Now, the Garda Civil would have had that, and also that means they would have had the make, the model, and the number plates of those cars. And Spain, like any other sort of modern European country, there's speed cameras everywhere, there's number plate reading cameras, and so they would have been able to trace the locations of those vehicles. So they obviously had plenty of definite leads in terms of what had went on in and around there at that time, and couldn't have told the family that. I think for obvious reasons, they would have had to keep a lot of that not to tip off the suspects in the case. And so the body was found. It was found in quite a remote area, but I'm told by people and I know that it would have been quite easily accessible off the motorway to Torrevieja. I don't even think that it's been, by the sounds of things, it hasn't been like a planned location. They've literally just turned off the road into the ruralest place that they could find,
right.
And that's where he's been found.
And who found the body? Was it cadaver dogs or was it the police?
It was the police. They could have been using their own cadaver dogs, because they did tell the George family, look, we do have search dogs and we will put those into an area as soon as we're close or as soon as we're sure. But you just need to bear with us while we do that. I had spoken, the day the body was found, I'd spoken to Billy George that morning, and he was, he says, I'm just out walking around here and I'm really at a loss. We've exhausted all our leads and we're not really sure what to do next. And, a lot of the family and the friends had already went home. A lot of them, people have jobs and children and the things to go back to. There was still a sort of, I suppose, a core, of the close family that were still there. And then at about 10 or 5:15 that night, I got a call, not from Billy himself, but from a close relative of theirs, to say, look, in the last sort of 10 minutes, the Garda Civil have been on the phone, they found a body. They're pretty sure it's John. There's a lot of, speculation online, and, could you just put something out saying that, give us some time to try and process this. And he had to be formally identified, but they knew it was him. He had very distinctive tattoos, And he was also wearing quite identifiable clothing
Right.
when he went missing. So they knew that it was him, but obviously formal identification in the form of DNA had to take place. They were going to take some fingerprints and some DNA, and obviously from his relatives. But still, I suppose, this is the problem when someone is a victim of a terrible crime like this abroad, and there's language barriers and everything else. While when they went to the morgue, they've been informed that he had been shot. That hasn't been officially confirmed to them by the police. Nothing has. They still don't even know when they're going to get his body home. There's a second autopsy, I think, has to take place on those remains. And the same day, then obviously that there was a body was found. The man who we knew all along was one of the suspects. So
Yeah.
so I've said to you, there's two suspects. One's a man from Northern Ireland, one's a man from the Czech Republic. The guy from the Czech Republic was arrested.
So the guy from Northern Ireland is missing?
He is apparently missing now. There's talk that he may be in Thailand. I don't think he's in Thailand. I think he's still in Spain somewhere.
More likely,
He's missing he's missing along with a young woman who's been with him the entire time. You can't stay missing for that long. Rent has to be paid, bills have to be paid. Passports are used, they're going to flag up. Interpol are involved in this case and they're going to flag that up. I think that when I was last speaking to Billy George, it seems obvious that they're being helped. They're being assisted. You cannot just go missing in another country without assistance, whether that be financial assistance or people using their names and identification to book properties and hire cars and whatever else is needed. So it seems obvious that the two have been assisted. The man hasn't been on social media or used his phone since a few days after John George's disappearance, since around the 20th of December. The female continued to be on social media until quite recently and has now suddenly went missing as well. But it's going to be very difficult for them to stay under the radar for too much longer, and I imagine we'll hear more about that very soon.
It's very hard to stay on the run if they are in Thailand. So what about the family? What can they do? Have they got a PSNI liaison officer now? Will the PSNI help them now to, so as they can be kept informed? They need to know when people are appearing in court. We find it difficult as journalists to sort of source that information in Spain sometimes, but they need somebody surely to help them.
Yeah, we're relying too on people who are living and working in Spain, and that isn't always the most reliable. There's times I've had to rely on journalists working there, and they've given me information that's been completely off. And unless you're there yourself on the ground, it's very difficult. But the family have a PSNI liaison officer. They met with that PSNI liaison officer on Monday, along with their solicitor Kevin Winters, and had a list of questions. And among the questions, they needed to know, when they were getting John home. Most importantly, they want more information on the cause of death and the autopsy. They want to know, in relation to those suspects, that reassurance at all is being done to try and trace them, through looking through social media and all sorts of other sites that these people were very active on prior to their disappearance. They also want to know the PSNI involved in looking at those who may be assisting these offenders from this jurisdiction, and will those people be questioned? And the PSNI had said that they could only act on the instructions of the Spanish police, but they were actively involved in helping and assisting them with this investigation. The family are just, I think at this point in time, it's the sort of blackout of information that's frustrating them. They are all home now. They come home on Friday, and there was a very emotional reunion at the airport where some of their other family members, they have gone home and they're patiently waiting on getting news as to when they can give John George a burial.
So what age are his kids?
His kids, one is very young, he's like primary school age, and the other one is a young teenager who is also a very talented boxer, I'm told,
right,
like his father.
Yeah, because, as a family, what do you do there? Do you send them back to school? Do you try and make things normal? You have no idea how long you're going to be waiting before the funeral, and it's really, really difficult for them. Well, look, we'll come back to this maybe later in the week and see if there's any developments as regards when the body is going to be sent home, and obviously anyone with any information, do get in touch with us.
So just quickly, I would say in terms of the information, the suspects who are on the run, the family do want to know why the Spanish police haven't put out an alert for them, asking if anyone sees them, because there's a huge community there who were only too willing to help with the search for John George, and would also be very willing to help with the search for any on the run suspects. So you would imagine by now that there would be some sort of alert asking people if they'd seen these people to contact the police. So maybe that might be something that might happen in the next few days.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thanks, Alison. I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.